The Benjamin Dixon Show is only possible with listener support. Go to www.thebenjamindixonshow.com to register for our blog and join the Progressive Army. And now, ladies and gentlemen,
You're now about to witness the truth.
It's the Benjamin Dixon Show.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Benjamin Dixon Show. I am your host, Benjamin Dixon. It is Tuesday, May 9th, 2017. Thanks so much for joining us. Major breaking news tonight. Attorney General Sessions and President Trump have decided that it is in the best interest of the United States that FBI Director James Comey is fired. And that's where we are. James Comey has been fired. Reports state that he was giving a speaking engagement in Los Angeles for fellow FBI members. And during during his speech, an announcement came across the screen behind him, and that's how he found out that he was fired. Also, there are reports from Los Angeles as he was en route back to his to the airport. We can presume that he was being followed. There was helicopters, local news helicopters, basically hovering over his entourage, his caravan. The reason behind his firing is interesting, to say the least. So this story is actually really happening on two levels. We're going to read all of the justifications, and we're going to give you the feedback that we've gotten from different lawmakers across the landscape, across party affiliations. We're going to discuss all of that. But then the real question is why. And so we're going to discuss what, but the real question is why. Why was he fired? We'll discuss that momentarily. Let me get this. All right, let's start here. Let's go with Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein. It was basically based on his memorandum to the AG, Jeff Sessions, and that was relayed to Donald Trump, and then subsequently James Comey was fired. So the first statement on your screen is from Rod Rosenstein, the Deputy Attorney General. He said that the director was wrong to usurp the Attorney General's authority on July 5th, 2016, and announced his conclusion that the case should be closed without prosecution. Let's switch back here. Just to give you more context, James Comey is essentially fired because of Hillary Clinton's emails. That is the greatest irony. Considering that the email scandal, particularly the FBI's role, particularly James Comey's role, the email scandal, if it had any effect, it had a positive effect for the Trump administration. You have a lot of arguing voices, dissenting voices that disagree to the scale of which the email entire fiasco had an effect on the election at all. Right? There are some statisticians who say that it did not. There are others that said that it did. We're going to state it like this. If there was any effect, the email had a positive effect for the Trump administration, for the Trump campaign at the time. So the greatest irony is that Comey is being fired by Trump because of Hillary Clinton's emails, that if those emails had any effect, they positively affected Donald Trump. That is the greatest irony around this. So this is the entire premise of the firing. So let's go back to the statement from Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein. He said the director was wrong to usurp the Attorney General's authority on July 5th, 2016, and announced his conclusion that the case should be closed without prosecution. It is not the function of the director to make such an announcement. At most, the director should have said the FBI had completed its investigation and presented its findings to federal prosecutors. The director now defends his decision by asserting that he believed Attorney General Loretta Lynch had a conflict of interest, or a conflict. He went on to say, but the FBI director is never empowered to supplant federal prosecutors and assume command of the Justice Department. There is a well-established process for other officials to step in when a conflict requires the recusal of the Attorney General. He went on to say on July 5th, however, the director announced his own conclusion about the nation's most sensitive criminal investigation. They slid in a little politics there, without the authorization of a duly appointed Justice Department leaders. Finally, he said, compounding the error, the director ignored another longstanding principle. We do not hold press conferences to release derogatory information about the subject of a declined criminal investigation. Derogatory information sometimes is disclosed in the course of criminal investigations and prosecutions, but we never release it gratuitously. He finally said the director laid out his version of the facts for the news media as it were a closing argument, but without a trial. It is a textbook example of what federal prosecutors and agents are taught not to do. So the case being made by Rod Rosenstein, the Deputy Attorney General, is pretty solid. It's solid in the sense that these are the same arguments that we heard from pundits, commentators, journalists, and politicians from the Clinton campaign. This is actually, they are undergirding the Clinton campaign's argument at the time of that press conference. Because if Jim Comey was going to come out and not press charges, then announce that you're not going to press charges and just in the press conference. But we've never seen, at least no one has given evidence of any other occasion where FBI director came and gave all of this negative information, derogatory information about the subject of an investigation in a press conference format, even though he had just concluded that they were not going to indict Hillary Clinton. So the case for his firing seems to be pretty solid. The motivation for his firing is definitely questionable, because for what reason? What is the impetus behind this? What is the driving force? And once you start broaching the surface of that, you really start going down a tunnel of trying to understand the mind of an unstable man. And so we'll get to that in a moment, but I want to read a couple of other statements from the Attorney General Jeff Sessions, from Press Secretary Spicer, and from Donald Trump. We'll pull them up on your screen so that you can read them. Whichever one you grab is fine. This is from the press secretary. He said, today, President Donald Trump informed FBI Director James Comey that he has been terminated and removed from office. President Trump acted based on the clear recommendations of both Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein and Attorney General Jeff Sessions. Statement directly from President Trump. He said, I have received letters from the Attorney General and the Deputy Attorney General recommending your dismissal as the Director of the Federal Bureau of Investigation. I have accepted their recommendation and you are hereby terminated and removed from office effective immediately. And finally, from Donald Trump, he said, and this is the paragraph here. He said, while I greatly appreciate you informing me on 3 separate occasions that I am not under investigation, I nevertheless concur with the judgment of the Department of Justice that you are not able to effectively lead the Bureau. Let's pause there for a second. That last paragraph from Donald Trump should go down in the history books to show the mental capacity and the thinking of the President of the United States, that it was important for him to include in this press release. I guarantee you his assistants, whoever typed this up, whoever helped them write it, probably begged Donald Trump to not include that second paragraph where he said, I appreciate you telling me on 3 occasions that I am not under investigation. But Donald Trump, I'm quite sure, personally insisted that that would be the case, that would be inside of the statement. All right, one last statement from Attorney General Sessions himself, and it reads, the director of the FBI must be someone who follows faithfully the rules and principles of the Department of Justice. Therefore, I must recommend that you remove Director James Comey. So, based on the memo from Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein, this is iron. I mean, it's a good case. It's a good case for his firing. Why now? What is the implications? What's the impetus? What is the driving force? If I'm not mistaken, a few weeks ago, Donald Trump was asked, maybe 2 weeks ago, Donald Trump was asked about the job security of FBI Director Comey, and he kind of alluded and said, there's still time. We'll see. You'll be surprised. So it seems as though this has been a case that has been building for quite some time for Donald Trump, for Donald Trump to fire Director Comey. The thing that surprises me is that they're willing to use this justification, because this really intersects, this really muddies the water in a very significant fashion, because they are literally undergirding, sustaining, and supporting the fact that James Comey did Hillary Clinton wrong with regard to how he had this press conference, decided not to prosecute her. They disagreed with his judgment call to not prosecute her, but then they added on top of that the fact that he should not have exposed all this derogatory information. So it's kind of two-sided. It seems as though they may be removing him. Here's possibility one, and I'm not quite ready to go down these trains of thoughts, because it's asinine. But if Donald Trump wanted to pursue charges against Hillary Clinton, it would be more difficult with an FBI director who already said that there's no reason to pursue these charges or to pursue this case. That's possibility one. I'm not sure if that's necessarily the case. Possibility two could be that he's not so much interested in getting Hillary Clinton. It could just be that Director Comey contradicted what President Trump said in a series of tweets, claiming that he had been tapped by President Obama. I'm willing to land there. I'm willing to explore that a little bit more, because Donald Trump, if nothing else, is extremely petty, extremely vindictive, and extremely narcissistic. He is focused like a laser on finding out the people who betray him, finding the people who are subverting him, the people who are leaking information. He wants to find out. He personally is involved with trying to find out who runs these quote unquote rogue White House accounts, Twitter accounts. The president of the United States is personally involved in that. And that should speak to you and let you know exactly how deranged our president is and how focused he is on vendettas. And so that the reality that the director of the FBI contradicted what he said publicly, and not just publicly, but before a congressional hearing, is not something that a person like Donald Trump can let slide. And so you have to put that on the table and say, perhaps this is nothing more than a vendetta against FBI Director Comey. And this is not to absolve Comey. This is not to absolve him on either side of the ledger. Number one, absolving him of his decision to put it out in the public that charges should not be brought against Hillary Clinton, that there should be no indictment. Right? This is not to absolve him of that decision, nor is it to absolve him of the fact that he had this press conference where he exposed all of this negative information, sullied the waters in a very significant way, such that it could have had a negative impact on the election. It's not to absolve him, but the reality is, why now? Why now, when a decision like this is not a politically expedient decision? It's not a politically wise decision. This is going to guarantee that Donald Trump has a special investigation into Russia and the collusion with Russia. This is not a wise political move. In fact, there are some Congress people and senators who are actually calling for that. Here's some of the feedback from across the spectrum, both sides of the aisles, up on your screen now. You have Senator Roy Blunt of Missouri. He said, "I believe new leadership at the FBI will restore confidence in the organization among people who do hard work to carry out this mission." That's one piece of feedback. But then you have on the other side, you have Senator Susan Collins, Republican. He said the president did not fire the entire FBI. He fired the director of the FBI, and any suggestion that this is somehow going to stop the FBI's investigation of the attempts by the Russians to influence the elections last fall is really patently absurd. This is just one person. It's the director. The investigation is going forward, both at the FBI and in the Senate Intel Committee in a bipartisan way. So I don't think there's any link at all. And that's stating the obvious. In fact, if anything, this decision by Donald Trump to go ahead and fire Jim Comey now, of all dates, is actually going to exacerbate the problem for him. It's going to intensify the scrutiny. It's going to intensify the calls for an independent investigation. It's going to intensify it from both sides of the aisles. There's really no way Donald Trump can now avoid a special prosecutor, an independent prosecutor into alleged collusion with the Russians. And so because of the political blowback, you cannot look at this and say that this was a political move to help him. This was a wise political move, one, a move that's going to help him at all. And you ask yourself the question, like, if this is going to hurt me, is this something that I need to do? If this decision is going to intensify all of the Russia jargon, all the Russian rhetoric, all of the Red Scare, legitimate and illegitimate, if it's going to intensify that, is this the proper time to fire James Comey for something that he did that technically helped us out? A rational person will say, no, this is not the time to do this. But we're not dealing with a rational person. We're dealing with a vengeful, irrational narcissist who is focused on executing his vendettas. And he has one against the FBI in general, but he also has one against the FBI director specifically. We're going to go into more of the feedback and comments from Congress people and from senators, but our lines are blowing up, and I know a lot of people have a lot to say. Give us your comments in the chat rooms. Join the conversation. Give us your, join the conversation. 857-600-0518. Let's take the first caller. Caller, you're live on the air.
Hello.
Hello, this is you. You're live. What's your name?
My name's Keith.
Keith, what's on your mind?
Yeah, I just wanted to comment on the whole Comey situation.
Mm-hmm.
I think the main thing that people need to look at is this whole Russia thing's been kind of overblown in our media. We see it pretty much filling up both sides, both on Fox and, MSNBC. And I think today just kind of shows that the Russia thing is always a tool that Trump can use to say, oh, this is just liberal outcry. This is just people reaching too far.
Mm-hmm.
But I think we really need to take it as there's something serious going on here, more than Russia colluding to interfere with our election. But I think there's, of course, your conflicts of interest is business ties.
Mm-hmm.
But the second thing I wanted to quickly, I know there's other callers, is you said earlier that, normally this isn't the situation that you would take, but Donald Trump isn't a normal person.
Exactly.
And he's going to use this. He's going to use this perfectly for his base, because now he can say, oh, I wanted to lock Hillary up, but I couldn't do it because people like him were in the way.
Mm-hmm.
And if it doesn't happen afterwards, he can say, oh, well, I didn't have the right people, or I didn't have enough staff, whatever other excuse he can find.
Yeah. Thanks for the call.
That's
I think that's
basically all I wanted to say.
Yeah, thanks so much for the call. 857-600-0518 to weigh in on the discussion. I like this comment that's on our screen from Kenda. She said, or they said, I agree. It could be for petty reasons. He should have been fired the day he didn't indict. And I think that's something that people across the aisle kind of agree with, right? Republicans and people who are anti-Hillary wanted him fired because everything that he said leading up to, I'm not going to offer or recommend an indictment, suggested that he should indict her. On the flip side, you even had Democrats and pro-Hillary people saying that he should be fired because in the middle of saying you're not going to indict her, you loaded the entire national conversation with all of this negative, derogatory information. And this is not something that people do. This is not something that prosecutors do. This is not something that a director of the FBI does. And so both sides of the equation really have called for him to be fired a long time ago. And the question would be, why now? I think it's more to do with the pettiness of the president than anything else, because it is not politically expedient. It is not politically wise. It is going to backfire on him politically but yet there's a sense of satisfaction that he's getting today because he got to tell somebody you're fired. Here's an interesting piece of information. The FBI has had a total of 18 directors since the first one in 1908, and there's only been one other FBI director to be fired, and that was William Sessions in 1993. He was fired by Bill Clinton. So this is a rare occurrence. This is only the second time out of the 18 directors that have served as directors of the FBI. All right, let's take any other comments or any other callers that we'll have, and then we'll go into some more of the feedback from congressmen and senators. This is from Hank. Okay, we'll get to that question later on in the show. All right, let's jump to a couple of other comments from congressmen and senators about this firing. There's a lot of different feedback coming from different sides of the equation. The next one on your screen is from Senator Charles Grassley, Republican from Iowa. He said, who is the chairman of the Senate Judiciary Committee. He says, the handling of the Clinton email investigation is a clear example of how Comey's decisions have called into question the trust and the political independence of the FBI. In my efforts to get answers, the FBI under Comey's leadership has been slow or failed to provide information that Comey himself pledged to provide. The effectiveness of the FBI depends on the public trust and confidence. Unfortunately, this has clearly been lost. I want to juxtapose that to Senator Richard Burr of North Carolina. He's also on the Senate Intelligence Committee. He said, I am troubled by the timing and reasoning of Director Comey's termination. I have found Director Comey to be a public service servant in the highest order, and his dismissal further confuses an already difficult investigation by the committee. In my interactions with the director and with the Bureau under his leadership, he and the FBI have always been straightforward with our committee. This is from Senator Richard Burr, Republican, also on the Senate Intelligence Committee. The interesting thing about this is that you have two entirely different views from two Republicans, both serving on the same committee, who are basically saying that they've had two totally different experiences. I'm not sure that there actually is going to be the case that they had entirely different experiences, as much as it is their perception of what they wanted to get out of Comey. There is a political aspect to this without a question, without a doubt. There's 100% a political aspect to this investigation, and whether or not the FBI director provided you with the narrative that is consistent with what you want the outcome to be. And this seems to be more of what Senator Grassley is upset because he's either not getting what he wants, or he's getting more than what he wants. Either way it goes, he's expressing an experience that's completely contradicts what his colleague, not just colleague, but his fellow Republican states. And so it shows you that you have politicians who are there, who are driving a political agenda, and they want the FBI director, they want anyone who comes before them to testify to service them in the fashion that meets their political agenda. And then you have others who seem to be looking at it from a more neutral perspective. But the reality of it is it's all political. It's all political, and it's all about what they can get out of the director or whoever's testifying at the time. So it's an interesting day. I'm not sure exactly. This next statement, I'm stating the obvious, but I have to say it. I'm not sure entirely what the hell the President of the United States is thinking. He is undermining himself with this fire. Not that Comey should stay, but firing Comey guarantees that there's going to be a special prosecutor, there's going to be an independent prosecutor. Everyone is calling from it from all sides. Let's pull up a couple of more comments from senators and congresspeople so that we can get that feedback. John McCain said, I have long called for a special congressional committee to investigate the Russian interference into the 2016 election. The president's decision to remove the FBI director only confirms the need and the urgency of such a committee. So this is not a Democrat. This is matter of fact, I think everything we read so far has been all Republican. And so you see that this has divided the Republican caucus. So Donald Trump does not have a solid support base, even from his own party on this. One last comment on your screen now. This is from Lindsey Graham. This is John McCain's twin brother. He says, I know this was a difficult decision for all concerned. I appreciate Director Comey's service to our nation in a variety of roles. Given the recent controversy surrounding the director, I believe a fresh start will serve the FBI and the nation well. I encourage the president to select the most qualified professional available who will serve our nation's interests. So there you have it, right? So right down the middle of the Republican caucus, you have people on both sides of the arguments. And the fact that you have some Republicans definitively calling for a special investigator, you're guaranteed to have every single Democrat lined up, foaming at the mouth, demanding a special prosecutor, an independent prosecutor, guaranteed. And now that you have this support in a very outspoken way from Republicans, guarantees that this decision by Donald Trump is going to undermine Donald Trump. Which means if anyone had the wherewithal to game this out, to actually think this through, they would have seen this coming. And had they seen this coming and they still decided to do this because President Trump insisted, this lets you know that we have an irrational actor in the White House. We have someone who's more concerned with a personal vendetta than he has for his own political well-being. And if he has more concern with a personal vendetta than his own political well-being, you can be rest assured that he has more concern about personal vendettas than he does with the average American. And this is who we're dealing with, and this is what we have going on. All right, this is breaking news from CNN. Subpoenas have been issued in the FBI Russia investigation. This is from Sam Feist. At CNN, he says amazing timing, and that's an understatement. The fact that these subpoenas have come up now after the firing of James Comey is fascinating. I'm reading directly from CNN because this is breaking news. They're saying federal prosecutors have issued a grand jury subpoenas to associates former National Security Advisor Michael Flynn seeking business records. As a part of the ongoing probe of the Russian meddling in last year's election, according to people familiar with the matter. The subpoenas represent the first sign of a significant escalation of activity in the FBI's broader investigation begun last July. The subpoenas issued in recent weeks by the U.S. Attorney's Office in Alexandria, Virginia, were received by associates who worked with Flynn on contracts. And he was forced out after he was forced out as director of Defense Intelligence Agency. This is an interesting turn of events. There have been several voices that have stated that this was coming. Some journalists whose names I will not mention on my show who have been predicting that this was coming in this fashion. I'm not sure that we can tie this to the firing of James Comey, except for the statement from Senator Collins, who says that Jim Comey is only one person. The investigation will go on, and it won't be hindered by this firing. And so this just goes to underscore the reality that firing James Comey, if nothing, it amplified the intensity with which people are scrutinizing Donald Trump, all of his affiliates, all of his associates, and their ties to Russia. All right, 857-600-0518 if you want to weigh in on the discussion. Caller, you're live on the air. What is your name, comment, and or question?
Hey, Ben, this is Brianna.
Hey, Brianna, how's it going?
I'm pretty good. The only thing I got to say when it comes quick and comment on James Comey is that this was just basically a fucking stupid move by Donald Trump and his administration just to fire him right now.
Yep.
Because now because you're going to fire the guy, and I'm not saying, Trump has, Trump, him and Putin collided during the general election. I'm trying to say, like, you're firing the guy who was supposed to be the leading guy in an investigation between your campaign and Russia, and makes it look like you're hiding something.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
It makes you look like you're hiding something. And if you want to get rid of him, why didn't you do it during the transition when you were coming into the White House during the beginning of January?
Yeah, yeah.
You know,
especially with
that been a lot more.
Yeah, especially with the justifications. Thanks so much for the call, Brianna. Especially with the justifications that they're using at this point. I mean, I can't agree with you more. This is. I won't say it's political suicide because Donald Trump probably is going to survive this. I don't see an impeachment in his future. And I've been wrong before, so I have no problem being wrong on that if he is impeached. But it's as close to political suicide as a president should get. This is a self-inflicted wound. This is a very unnecessary self-inflicted wound that that he could have easily avoided if his justifications were valid. Even if it didn't happen during the transition, after the confirmation of Attorney General Jeff Sessions, before Jeff Sessions himself got in trouble speaking incorrectly, lying under oath. Had they done this before then it would be less suspicious. But now this is happening after Comey testified before Congress. I just don't see how you can look at this and say that this was a wise political move. And the only for me to game this out, the only rational explanation of this is that Donald Trump is so vindictive that he's irrational. And that is not just me trying to psychoanalyze Donald Trump just for shits and giggles. This is somebody who will make a major decision to his own personal detriment because of a vendetta. What do you think he's going to do when it doesn't involve his own personal benefit? 857-600-0518 if you want to weigh in on the discussion. Leave your comments in the comments section, and we will discuss them as we go. We have a comment here from one of our viewers. Let's pull up on the screen from Wayne. Man, I know this is old news, but I absolutely love the set upgrades made to the show. The name caption, the super HD camera, the extra screen looks great. Ben, Progressive Army. All right, thanks, man. Thanks, Wayne. I guess that's as good a spot as any to transition to another story. If you want to talk about Jim Comey being fired, send us a message on Twitter, on Facebook, or on YouTube, and we'll pull it up. Thanks so much. This is a good spot for me to thank our patrons. I didn't get a chance to do it at the top of the show because of the breaking news, but definitely want to thank all of our patrons. You're getting more bonus content than you probably want. I would say that. Now that I figured out an easy way to get you bonus content, analyses, discussions, and feedback, I'm able to do it first thing in the morning, and I shoot it out to you, and we have a conversation throughout the day. So I want you to go to patreon.com and help us pay for all these fancy lights and TVs and studio time, et cetera, et cetera. Patreon.com/The BPD Show, and become a supporter of the Benjamin Dixon Show and join the family. Join the inner circle. Everybody here is family. All right. Here's another comment from our chat room. This is Hank. Oh, actually, no, we have a different one coming up, but we'll take this one. This is one that I wanted to get to last night, and we'll take a couple of minutes to comment on this. What is really the difference between government-controlled media and a few big companies controlling all the media when those companies are in cahoots with the government? This is a question that came last night at the end of the show. I saw this comment and I said, I absolutely have to discuss this on air because I think it's a brilliant comment. This is in context of the Sinclair Group buying up Tribune Media, basically moving in the trend in the direction of conglomerates, media conglomerates, not just media conglomerates, airline conglomerates, just is the monopolization. We're going back to an era of monopolies, and particularly where it's most nefarious is it's most nefarious in the media, because this means that all of the media outlets that we have now, all of the media outlets that we have now are controlled by 5 corporations. All the major media outlets that we have now are controlled by 5 corporations. That means the messaging that we get, the Overton window, the room for discussion that we get on the national level is controlled by 5 organizations, corporations. And so the question from Hank on last night, which we had to discuss, is what's the difference between a straight government-controlled media and corporations controlling all the media when they're in cahoots with the government? Let me split that up into 2 things. One, his comment, which is, media being in cahoots with the government. Definitely. I mean, this is the regulations that allow these conglomerates to be amassed. It comes directly from the government, right? This does not happen without the approval of our politicians and our bureaucracy. So this is a symbiotic relationship, right? The media, millions of dollars received from campaign. The campaign contributions are spent on media. So they're getting money that way. They're donating back to politicians, and that money is being recycled right back to them. And there's a consistent message that you hear on every station. I mean, we like to think that we're hearing something different when we listen to Fox News versus MSNBC, but really all we're hearing is the argument, the carefully controlled argument between Fox News and MSNBC. It gives us the appearance, the sensation that we're actually having a critical conversation in the United States. We're not. We're having a carefully crafted and controlled conversation that's dictated by our politicians, but more specifically by those 5 corporations that control all of our media outlets. So what's the difference, Hank? There is no difference. But I want to go one step further. Even without the government's involvement, what's the difference between having 5 corporations who dictate what we can think and talk about and Big Brother as we perceive it? What's the difference between a state-controlled media that puts out one message and corporations who have full control over almost every aspect of our media consumption, telling us what they want to think? Are we more comfortable with the idea that that corporations are controlling our narrative, are controlling our media, than we would be the government? What difference does it make? What difference does it make when you have media outlets who are controlled by corporations who have an agenda that is pro-corporate to the detriment of the average American, and we're more comfortable thinking that this is okay versus these 5 conglomerates being controlled by the government? It makes no difference whatsoever. I don't care if Big Brother is the government and bureaucrats, or if Big Brother is corporate bosses. It makes absolutely no difference to me when the scope of our entire national conversation is carefully controlled by these 5 corporations. All right, let's double back. We're still getting a lot of feedback on the conversation for Jim Comey. This is from Trucido on Facebook. She says, "Sure, Benjamin, but they can override even filibusters. I just am not sure if the minority party can convince enough of those Republicans to turn. They lockstep vote all too often." If I had to extrapolate what this is about, this is about whether or not Republicans and Democrats are going to collectively demand a special investigator, independent investigator in this. It seems to be that's the case. If you listen to Senator John McCain, it seems to be that Republicans are on board. And we don't even have to put up comments from Democrats at this point. They are foaming at the mouth, waiting for the opportunity to demand a special investigator. Let's get this last comment and we'll move on to a couple of other stories from Keith. He said, "Your show has just become a must-watch every night. Appreciate you and your community." Thanks so much, Keith. Definitely want you guys to tune in as often as you can. We can't do it without you. Let's go to international news. This is a surprising move in terms of the United States and Turkey relations. The Trump administration has approved a plan to arm the Syrian Kurds against the Islamic State, according to the Washington Post. This is in context of that. the existence of Kurdistan is considered to be an existential threat to Turkey. Turkey considers it to be such a threat. And this is why in the Obama administration, we did not have as much direct arming. We had tacit support, we had vocal support, but we did not have as much arming of the Kurds in any instance because of the potential threat that posed, posed to the sovereignty of Turkey. And so the fact that President Trump has gone ahead and approved plans to arm Syrian Kurds to fight against the Islamic State really is going to be a blow in our relationship. The United States depends on the relationship with Turkey for our operations that we carry out, but Turkey also depends on the relationship with the United States, particularly with them being a member of NATO. Our relationship has been estranged, has been tested. It has been less than favorable, or ideal is the word I'm looking for, over the last couple of years. It seems as though Erdogan is moving more towards a cozy relationship with Russia versus the United States, and that's relevant in context of discussing NATO. But it would be interesting to see the response, if we haven't had the response already, to see how Turkey is going to respond to this, because arming the Kurds actually enforces or underscores or supports an independent Kurdistan. And portions of Kurdistan actually intersect with the sovereign territory of Turkey. And so anything that's done to support the Kurds, in Turkey's estimation, is a threat to their sovereignty. So this is not a move that's going to be taken lightly by Turkey. Pentagon spokeswoman Dana White said the president made this decision on yesterday. She said, quote, the only force on the ground. She said that she described the Syrian Democratic Forces, the SDF, as a diverse group dominated by Kurdish fighters. And she described them as, quote, the only force on the ground that can successfully seize Raqqa in the near future. She went on to say, quote, we are keenly aware of the security concerns of our coalition partner, Turkey. We want to reassure the people and the government of Turkey that the United States is committed to preventing additional security risks and protecting our NATO ally. I can immediately tell you that that statement is going to be laughed at by the Erdogan administration, because the second part where she says we want to reassure the people of Turkey and the people in the government of Turkey that the United States is committed to preventing additional security risks and protecting our NATO ally. Well, yeah, I mean, you've already this move that you just did undermines them, and I don't want anyone to be mistaken. I agree that the Kurds are probably the most effective fighting force that we have in the region to fight against ISIS. I agree that arming them is probably a smart move, but it does strain the relationship between Turkey, an already estranged relationship with Turkey and the United States. All right. Still breaking news coming across my screen as we discuss this with James Comey. This is coming from Brad Jaffe of MSNBC. Jim Comey, when he found out about this, when he found out about his firing, again, remember, when he found out about this, he was giving a speech. He was giving a speech to fellow FBI, his colleagues at the FBI, and it was flashed across the screen behind him as he gave the speech. This is how he found out he was fired. And according to Brad Jaffe of MSNBC, he said Comey thought that it was a prank and laughed when the news of his firing flashed on the TV. That's pretty savage, man. That's brutal. That's funny as hell. I'm sorry. I'm trying to be as professional as I can with that, but that shit is funny as hell. I'm sorry. James Comey probably is, I don't know, like him, love him, or hate him. It's probably a decent FBI director in the grand scheme of things, but to think that he was on stage talking, I mean, this is like the scene from Friday. How the hell you get fired on your day off? Like, he's out on vacation, not vacation so much, but he's in LA. He's so far from home. And here's the other question I have. I'm so sorry. We just went completely unprofessional. I don't care. once he's no longer the director, effective immediately, like what protocols do they have in place to even address that when he's on the other side of the country? Do they say, sorry, director, you can't get on this plane because you're not the director anymore. You got to get a commercial flight back to DC. And as he's heading back to the airport, he's being stalked by a local newscopter. You know, this is a tragedy in the most comedic sense imaginable. This is and the fact that he thought it was a prank. I mean, that's brutal. That's brutal. I'm not laughing at Director Comey. Not that that matters, but I'm laughing with him because he's got at some point next week he's got to look back and say that shit was funny as hell. And the greatest irony of it all is that the Trump administration is firing him for helping them. Again, if the email investigation had any effect at all, statisticians on different sides of the argument disagree about that. But if it had any effect, we can all agree it helped Jim Comey. And that Donald Trump and Jeff Sessions got together. I know somewhere that gremlin-looking little piece of crap, Jeff Sessions, laughed himself to sleep with the idea that they're firing Jim Comey because he did something to help them in the long run in the grand scheme of things. This is stranger than fiction. I don't know if I want to know what screenwriter could have written this, because this is hilarious. 857-600-0518. I have two other stories that I want to get to before the show is over. But if you have any other feedback, now is a good time. Let's get all of the Jim Comey stuff in over the next 2 or 3 minutes, and then we'll be done with it for the night. 857-600-0518. All right, going once, going twice. We will bust a move. Good. I like that. Let's talk about South Korea. We're going to talk about South Korea. We're also going to talk about, the last thing I want to talk about is Betsy DeVos and Bethune-Cookman College, because that actually came across my screen at the beginning of the show. South Korea election. The election was won. Moon Jae-in was declared the winner. He is the more liberal-leaning, left-leaning candidate, and he is a liberal who favors a more open policy towards North Korea. I think that's critical in the conversation. He actually has spoken out against the missile defense system that the United States has deployed. They're looking to have a more conciliatory approach towards North Korea, and in the current climate, this cannot hurt. This can only help. When you consider the tensions, the escalating tensions between the North and the South, and the potential for a nuclear encounter because of the North's nuclear capabilities, it is reasonable to think that this is going to be beneficial. In terms of what was important in this election for South Koreans, corporate corruption was number one, economic inequality. Economic inequality, handling North Korea and U.S. relations. With 100%, and this is according to CNN, with 100% of the votes counted, Moon won with 41.8%, and that's about 13.4 million votes. But this is cool. We got it. All right, next story. I'm completely thrown off. I looked up and saw the comment on the screen. I'm just completely thrown off, folks. All right, last story of the night. Do we have a picture of Betsy DeVos anywhere? I'll shoot you one real quick. It's no biggie. I mean, we already got comfortable, like, at this point. Betsy DeVos, and you can start the clip in 1 second when I get you this picture. Ba-da-ba-ba-ba. Give me a call, 857-600-0518. You got it? Okay. Let's start this section. Oh, we got a call. Let's do the caller first. Caller, you're live on the air. What's your name, comment, and or question?
Hello?
Mm-hmm. You're live.
Oh, is this me?
This is you. You're live on the air. What's your name?
Oh, okay. My name is Melvin. I'm here in Seattle. And I was just wanted to comment something on, you had mentioned Turkey getting a closer alliance with Russia.
not necessarily a closer alliance. Alliance would definitely be the wrong word, but distancing themselves from the United States in recent months, absolutely. And it's weird. It's weird. It seems as though their relationship got cozier. I don't know if you remember back in January, was it January 2015, when they shot down a Russian fighter jet? That had the potential of really, leading to all kinds of disaster. But as a result of that, it seemed like immediately after that, they started to get a little closer with the Kremlin. But go ahead. I'm sorry.
Exactly.
You had your own point. Go ahead.
Yeah, see, my thing is, I'm a veteran, so I'm a Marine Corps vet. And when I see this, I'm automatically thinking geography. So the reason why we need to prevent all we can as the United States, like our foreign policy, we can't allow Russia and Turkey to get cozy, because that's their only access. That's Russia's only access to the Mediterranean Sea. And their Navy is already weakened because half of the sea so basically half of the coastline, the Russian coastline where they could get their naval ships, is frozen during half of the year. The Mediterranean Sea is the only part, that they could, get a fast-racking Navy force.
Yeah,
also Crimea.
They also, I was just going to say, they have the Crimea now.
Exactly. So the Crimea is just a small little pathway, but the Mediterranean, if they could wedge a relationship between us and Turkey, that's strategically brilliant. Mixed with Syria, having their naval bases in Syria. That's why foreign policy wise, Trump, I hate the fact that he's I hate the fact that he's our president, but I hope that this is one thing he could strong arm and won't allow Turkey to do. Maybe I don't know how you handle that foreign policy wise, but
yeah, and it's even more
in play here.
It's even more complicated with the fact that they are in NATO, so that definitely complicates the situation. Thanks for the call. It's actually a great point. So they would have a greater access with Turkey. They currently have access with Crimea, and that does give them a better strategic position in terms of accessibility for their navy. Great point. 85. Well, actually, I was getting ready to call out the number again, but we're running out of time. Let's talk about Betsy DeVos one last time. I thought this was going to be a one-time story, but apparently it's not. Betsy DeVos has been invited to Bethune-Cookman University, a college that I attended, to be the commencement speaker. And as a result, many students have spoken out. There's a statement from former SGA presidents, the current SGA. A lot of voices are speaking out against this because everything that Betsy DeVos stands for is antithetical to what Mary McLeod Bethune stood for. 100% so. The reason this is on the radar again is because according to the NAACP, the university, Bethune-Cookman University, has threatened to withhold degrees from graduating students if they protested a visit from Education Secretary Betsy DeVos. This is according to WFTV Channel 9 there in the local area. This is so as a result of this threat, the NAACP is calling for the president of the university to step down. And I agree. If there's any substance to this claim, you are threatening the degrees of people who have paid this expensive private institution for 4 years and who want to speak out in dissent for a piss poor decision that you made, and now you're threatening them without being able to not be able to get access to their degrees. If this is the case, then the president does need to step down. Because this would be the perfect example of silencing the dissent, silencing the speech. And in this case, the only way these students can speak out is by walking out. They can't get on stage and give a counter argument. They can't get on stage and say why it's problematic. And so they have the right as free moral agents to get up and walk the hell out. But the president of the university is saying that they're going to withhold degrees. And the NAACP is involved at this point. I think it needs to involve more than just the NAACP. It needs to involve every student. It needs to involve every professor. It needs to involve the marching band, the band, everyone from professor. I'm getting old. I had the name. I can't even remember all their names. But everyone involved, the community, the pastors, the local congregation, everybody involved should speak out about this and make a declarative statement. If you agree with her being there, fine, stay there. But the people who do not agree with her have every right to get up and walk out without being penalized by the university. And so it's up to the NAACP, but also, again, like I stated, it needs to be up to everyone who has any vested interest in the future of this university. Whether or not the president is forced out, that's neither here nor there. But the commencement speech is coming up soon, and these students should not have their graduation marred in a way. I mean, this is about the students. I think this is ultimately what the president and the administration, they're missing. People pay a lot of money to go to your school for 4 years, and they overcome, they do everything they need to do to get this degree. This is not about you politicking. This is not about you rubbing shoulders and trying to show that you are the good ones. Hey, we like you here. Come on over to Bethune-Cookman University and give us some special access and some special privilege. It's not about you. It's about the students that pay your salary through their tuition. And then to force them, because you made a bad decision, to force them to have to suffer through a speech that they vehemently oppose in order for you to save face really does make the case that you probably should not be the president of the university. Folks, you have a great night.
The Benjamin Dixon Show is only possible with listener support. Go to www.thebenjamindixonshow.com to register for our blog, join the Progressive Army, and support The Benjamin Dixon Show. It's Ben Dixon! If you like this episode, be sure to share, like, and subscribe.
Consider becoming a Patreon. Go to www.patreon.com/The BPD Show and support The Benjamin Dixon Show.